How's everybody?
Doing good. How you doing?
Good.
Good. I don't know how many we've got on because I'm doing this from my phone today.
There's 12 of us.
12? All right. Hey, wonder where water bills due this month? I'm going to call you with my credit card after this. I lost a whole month somewhere.
I can't imagine how that could have happened.
Are you back in Hawaii, Chip?
I am.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be getting cold back there. It's time to get out of there.
I don't know, man. Freaking this global warming. Look at this. Idaho Springs not going to get below 40 degrees this year.
That's crazy.
No. Mom's worried about us taking care of all those leaves and stuff when we get older. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for being here with us. As usual, let's see. I don't know, do we have Dr. Ryan with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Mike.
All right, Dr. Ryan. Yeah, I can't see everybody at one time. So I'd like everybody to meet Chuck Harmon. This is Mayor-elect Chuck Harmon. He'll be taking over the second week of January. Congratulations, Chuck, for your win. I think that he will be the person to continue to help Idaho Springs move forward, over the next several years. So thanks, Chuck. What we'd like to do to get going here is get an update from Dr. Ryan, kind of give us an idea of what's going on, what to expect, and things that we should be thinking about as we move into the winter months. So Dr. Ryan, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. Chuck, congratulations on the win. Look forward to working with you in the future. Sorry, my video is not working today. I don't know why. So I wish I had good news, and someday I might have good news for this group or any group for that matter. The governor issued an advisory last Friday, drawing attention to the reality that has been going on for the last 2 months. And our hospitals are full, plain and simple. They're averaging 150 to 200 new admits a day. And most hospitals in this state are at capacity. So any new admits requires an exit and or a death. And so unfortunately, the admits are outpacing either one of those other two options. So that's a huge problem when our hospitals are overwhelmed, because eventually they potentially collapse. And if they collapse, we all have a big problem, because any heart attack or stroke or accident or anything, there's no room at the hospital at all. Case counts have been going up for the last several months, as I have suggested on this call many times, as our hospital admissions. Here in Clear Creek County, we have been holding steady for the last several weeks, although our numbers are starting now to tick up. We have had 3 hospitalizations in this county in the last 7 days. So moving in the absolute wrong direction. Where to go from here? I can't stress enough. 80% of those in the hospital are among unvaccinated individuals. So if you know anyone who's unvaccinated, do your best to convince them to get vaccinated. Almost 500 million vaccines have been given out. So far as I know, no one has grown an extra nose, a third arm, or a fourth leg. So it's life-saving, it's free, and it's keeping our hospitals from getting overwhelmed completely. Unfortunately, all the states around us, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico are all in the top 10 of states leading the charge in cases and hospitalizations across the country. I know in the news you see lots of positive news around the entire country, but among those 6 states, every single one of them is in the top 5 for cases and for hospitalizations across this region. So lots of work to do. I'm not sure what more we can do. We are doing our level best, trying to convince people to get vaccinated. As you know, the misinformation out there is abundant, and sometimes it's on your telly when you turn that on. So not sure how to combat that, or if we're ever going to. It's going to take people knowing someone who's died or is hospitalized to maybe change their perspective. But until we get to that point, here we are. Any questions?
Okay, I can't see any hands up because I can't see everybody. Andy, do we have anybody that's wanting to ask any questions?
It does not appear there are any questions, Mayor.
All right.
So the only other final point is we will be vaccinating all those children whose parents will allow them to in the next week. We will be at every single elementary school in the county, providing those vaccines with parent permission, as well as circling back to the middle school, high school. Speaking of the middle school, high school, as you're all well aware, with our public health order, masks are mandated, and we are testing all student athletes twice a week. As much pushback as we got from that, the result has been less than a handful of quarantines this entire school year to date. So it's had a dramatic impact on our ability to limit the need for quarantine, that and those folks who are vaccinated. So if spitting in a test tube is against your rights in some way, it's kept your child in school for those 14 days that they would have otherwise been on quarantine. So it has bared the fruit that we thought it would in helping us keep control of the spread in the schools, the middle school, high school anyway, and really keep our quarantine levels down and keep kids in school where they belong.
Dr. Ryan.
Dr. Ryan, go ahead.
Sorry, Mike. No, I was just wondering, when should parents expect to see the permission slips for the vaccination next week?
Those should have been sent out by the schools. We have forwarded them to each of the principals at the schools. I can tell you when, so this Wednesday we'll be at Georgetown School, elementary school on Friday, this week. Yes, in 2 days. We will be at Carlson Elementary School in Idaho Springs on this Friday, and then we'll be at King Murphy on next Monday.
I'm not the most organized parent when it comes to school stuff, but I don't recall seeing anything. So I'm going to reach out to them today and see my kids at PCS.
Yeah, and we'll have the permission slip is necessary. Obviously, if you're not going to be there, if you're going to be there, we'll have them on site. You can certainly fill them out. They are requesting that kiddos who are in kindergarten through 3rd grade, that the parents actually be there. It makes our job a lot easier. Vaccinating them when they're that young, they tend to fear takes over, and it makes it a little more difficult for us. So,
which one are you using?
The Pfizer vaccine is the only one authorized for those individuals 5 to 11.
Okay.
And it's a 2-dose regimen. It's a third the dose that adults got, so it's much smaller dose, but it is a 2-dose regimen, and it's 21 days apart.
All right. A question I asked several months ago with the contact sports in Clear Creek School. At that time, you said that football was going to happen, but there was still some concern about wrestling. Do you have any idea of what direction the school is going to do on wrestling this year?
I don't, I've been in a number of discussions, Mike, around that with the school district. I don't know where they've landed thus far. It is unequivocally the highest risk sport there is from a COVID transmission perspective, because one, you can't wear a mask. And two, you're literally in the armpit of another for what could be 30 seconds or 5 minutes, depending obviously on the match. So I don't know where they've landed yet. On that, we'll have to circle back and talk to Chris Gould, the principal, and Karen.
Okay.
Doc-
All right.
Dr.
I've got a wrestler. That's why I was asking.
Dr. Ryan, I have a personal question also. I'm vaccinated, but I did have a breakthrough case here about a month ago. When would it be appropriate for me to get my booster shot? I'm on Moderna.
The Moderna vaccine. That's a great question, Chip. Probably in the next month or so. I imagine you're feeling fine now.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably in the next month or so.
I had one question, and this might be really stupid, but it seems with our hospitals full, it almost seems like it's more even dire than it was 6 months ago. I mean, should we expect any shutdowns or mandates? It just seems like we haven't really talked much about shutdowns, but it seems like the situation is so much worse.
You are 100% correct. I wouldn't anticipate those. It seems that the powers that be are unwilling, the highest powers in this state anyway. They are absolutely unwilling to do anything other than call in FEMA or call in the feds to try to bolster the hospital staff. This is what it boils down to. The hospital staff is absolutely exhausted. Not only that, but they are at their wits' end now, dealing with 80% of their patient population who are there because they chose not to take preventive measures. And now they're demanding top-notch quasi-treatment to help them. So as you might imagine, at the end of any given day, they're exhausted. And so right now, the only request that the powers that be in this state have been to bolster the hospital staff, asking for nurses and doctors from the federal government to come in and help bolster the staff. That's the biggest challenge. The number of beds in this state is less than it was before. More importantly, there are far fewer staff to staff the beds, and a bed is absolutely useless unless there's staff to staff it. So the amount of beds that we have in any given day is less relevant than the number of staff we have across the entire state, nursing staff and physicians. Knowing a handful of them personally who are working in ICUs, they're beyond tired.
Dr. Ryan,
Yes.
this is Andy. Would you just summarize the governor's advisory that was issued Friday for us?
The advisory basically, and I can forward it on to you, Andrew. You can send it out to everybody. It basically is drawing attention to what has been going on for the last 2 months. And they decided that it now warrants, for some strange reason, advising everybody that it's now bad, even though it's been bad for the last 2 months. It would be funny if it wasn't. And basically what it says is you should take things seriously, you should get vaccinated, everything that we've been saying to date, except it's now in an official letter, an official advisory from the governor's office or CDPHE out to the broader community. It's, public health has done all we can. We've tried to get as many people vaccinated as are willing and able. But again, it gets back to the level of misinformation is so overwhelming. And the amount of misinformation that people consume and believe on a daily basis is really keeping us from making any more progress. It tricked the number of new vaccinated individuals over 18 is a handful in any given week. So it falls well short of what we need.
The recommendation that I recently heard about for wearing masks indoors, was that just in Denver or in the Denver metro? That wasn't a statewide recommendation, was it, or was it?
Um, without getting myself in too much trouble.
Sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I
Nothing,
know.
nothing is recommended for the statewide.
Okay.
I would strongly suggest, as strongly as I possibly can, even though if you're vaccinated, that you are going out into public places like grocery stores, places that are inside and that are high population. Of the people you see in there, the vast majority of those who are wearing their masks are the vaccinated, unfortunately. So I would strongly recommend you continue to do that. As much as I want to rip my mask off my face, I still wear one out in public. I have a 9-year-old daughter who's not vaccinated and fully unprotected. And so I would strongly recommend, to Chip's point, is a breakthrough possible? Absolutely. The likelihood of you ending up in the hospital or dying from a breakthrough case is extremely low. As I said, 80% of those in the hospital are unvaccinated. I don't know what more compelling evidence one would need to get vaccinated, but.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Ryan?
Dr. Ryan, do you know what the current positivity rate is?
In this state, it is over 9%.
Whoa.
It's very alarming.
Whoa.
Yes, the average, it's about 2,800 cases a day, which is a significant increase. Our 2-week cumulative incident rate in the state is about 648 per 100,000. And currently it says 51% of our ventilators are in use, but again, we don't have 100% capacity. So that 51% is a little bit discerning.
Okay.
Is there any possibility that the county's going to put mandate in for the county to wear mask wearing?
You know, Chip, I don't think we're going to, and the reason and rationale behind that, I don't know that it would really change the needle. In terms of, it would put the onus on business owners to enforce, what we need is a statewide mandate, and that ain't coming, plain and simple. So trying to piecemeal in the 60 plus counties in this state is no way to move forward. It's not productive. It's not effective. You know, the vast majority of these folks who are in the hospital now aren't coming from Metro Denver and Boulder in the highly vaccinated communities. They're coming from the communities that have 30, 40, 50% vaccination rates in them and no hospital for 50 miles.
Do you know what our vaccination rate is in Clear Creek?
I do indeed. So our DOLA changed our denominator. So our vaccine rate actually jumped fairly a fair bit. So right now we're at 71%, and this only includes 18 and above. It doesn't include, or no, I'm sorry, 12 and above. 71% have received at least one dose, and 65.6% are fully vaccinated among 12 and above. That'll obviously drop once they include the 5 to 11-year-olds, increasing our denominator, but we'll see.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Ryan? Mayor Hillman has asked me to facilitate the meeting for the moment. He's tied up with another matter. Still on the call, but just tied up. So, Dr. Ryan, thank you very much for your updates. Very much appreciated. While we still have you, Dr. Ryan, let's see here. 23rd. Okay, the next meeting's on the 22nd. Okay. Never mind. I thought we might be getting into Thanksgiving, but I think that's the week of Thanksgiving, but I think we'll be all right.
One final point, we do have testing 3 times available in this county, twice in Idaho Springs on Tuesday, Thursday. That is now in the parking lot of the new clinic. the Clear Creek Health and Wellness Center from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then Mondays in Georgetown, same hours, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And vaccine clinics is every Wednesday out of the new clinic from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Very good. And also put a plug in for the flu shot. The flu shot is also available at the clinic. Is that right?
Yep, we have both regular flu and then the dose for 65 individuals 65 and older.
Great. All righty. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I think we'll move next to the barriers that are being considered for reopening Minor Street, at least in part to vehicle traffic, and also to permit possibly pedestrian use or dining use on the north side. And I want to make sure we have enough time to talk this through and perhaps come up with a recommendation for City Council, because it'll be on the work session this evening for City Council to decide which way we're going to go on this. So I think there was consensus at our special meeting last week. What I heard is the desire, or at least the consensus with this group, to open Minor Street one-way eastbound through the winter, and then have the option of use of the space on the north side. So really the question now, I believe, boils down to what type of barrier, the cost, how long it would take to get the barriers, and those sorts of things. So I believe Jared or Jonathan have a presentation for us.
All right. Thank you, Andy. So staff has done some research in regards to barriers. We have a number of potential different options. I'm going to share my screen real quick and kind of go through the options, and then yeah, we can discuss it. All right, so we put together basically 4 different options right now. One is we still have the water barriers just in case. The second one is the metal planters that are from the same company that does the fencing. Now those metal barriers, currently they're a little smaller in size. They're not as wide as some of these other items. So we're recommending, if we do go that route, purchasing more of them. But we're also checking with that manufacturer to see if they can build larger ones, because frankly, this group, they fabricate everything themselves. They manufacture it all themselves, so the design can change. The good thing about this item is that it's on legs, so it can be picked up by a forklift or front end loader. It kind of matches the Minor Street aesthetic, durable, Colorado made. We believe that there's a December deliverable delivery time frame, at least for a portion of the planters. Moving on to the next one. So we've been looking at a whole host of different concrete planters. There's a number out there, but it's a little challenging to latch on to exactly which one we want. The deliverable dates are kind of all over the map. They're not, the companies aren't great right now about saying this is when you're going to get this product. But and this picture we put in here as an example. John did find another image of a planter that did have cutouts at the bottom for a front end loader. If possible, we would really like to get something of that nature so to make it easier to move. Otherwise, there's oftentimes some internal hooks that we can hook on straps and lift them up and move them around. It's not as ideal because we will have things planted in there, etc. Or we can put 4x4s under these, and therefore elevating them and getting to be able to get a front end loader underneath it. The nice thing about these is they're very heavy. From a safety perspective, they're probably one of our better items. They're easy to beautify. They're nice aesthetically to begin with. They're durable. The only issue is the lead time is probably close to the end of December, which isn't all bad. But we as staff would make kind of but we've got to call some companies and see exactly which ones we could get. We've done some research on that, but we'd have to finalize that if you did end up going with a rectangular concrete planter. And then as another item in there is, which I don't think is quite as versatile, but it is, it works with the safety component that we're looking into. It's very heavy, able to be moved by a front end loader. It's kind of this Jersey barrier look that's out of actually concrete. It's a little more decorative. It is something that we could potentially paint some of those squares in the middle that could have a fun project, could make them a little more unique, easier to move. They're a little less versatile though, because we can't beautify them besides paint. We can't put flowers and other things in there. And then we're also not 100% on the lead time for those either. So of that, our costs, we're looking at the wire barriers are about $12,000. We've got a pretty solid quote on those. The others, were approximations. As I mentioned, we're still working with the company that produces the metal product, and they're looking into whether or not they can make it larger for us. If not, then they have given us a price that's a little below that $35,000 figure, but we gave a little bit of a buffer in case of shipping and things of that nature. And then the same is also true of the other two. We would be ordering fewer of the concrete structures, but because they are longer, and then the price does range, and we aren't entirely certain of the shipping cost. John, did I miss anything on that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I did want to tell the group I did happen to see one of the metal planters get hit by a car in Golden this morning, and it didn't move the planter and it didn't damage it. It was very, very slow speed collision though, but I just wanted to say that I did witness that. I think everything else Jared said is pretty accurate. The cement stuff, we found it at Grainger, and Grainger seems to think they can deliver it by the end of the year. But most of the fabricators are saying it's at least a 2.5 month to 3.5 month lead time, just because of the forms they have and other projects going on. So there are some challenges in the concrete world. And then they have to cure as well because it'd be poured in the wintertime. So that is one other challenge that we've seen. We've been exploring a funding opportunity that we are not 100% sure if we have access to yet. But if we were able to do that, it could potentially help defray some of this cost too. But we just don't have that information yet.
Looks like Chip has his hand up.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. How many of these barriers are you anticipating that you're going to need? I'm looking at the second one down actually.
That's been a hard question for us because we want to make sure two things that we've been thinking about. One, we want to make sure that if you want to do the dining, that you can. Any business could, if in theory do it, they could pick between dining and parking like we've discussed. But we haven't really gotten firm answers from anyone specifically whether or not they want to do it or when they want to do it. And so that's been a kind of a moving target for us. That's made it a little bit challenging. The other thing is that if we do have like an outside funding source, it may potentially mean, maybe we want to take advantage of that and get as many as we can so that in the summertime we can use them as well. That's one of the reasons we like those metal planters is because they could be used to help us shut the street down or to beautify and make sure that, our public health situation in the future, if we have something change, we have a tool that we can instantly bring out and make it all kind of functional if we need to.
And actually looking at that piece kind of made me think of mining carts. Could we possibly just use, I'm sure around the county, we got a bunch of old mine cars around. Maybe we could just use some of those for the winter and just use those as your barricade, at least for the winter.
I don't think we're opposed to that. I think that we're more than happy to utilize those for the amount that we can find, etc. I don't know what our quantity is on that. We've also anything that we utilize right now is kind of built on the premise that we would put some of these in certain key locations for an area, and then utilize other materials such as, barrels, as Steve had mentioned previously. He has a number of barrels to kind of fill in some of the gaps, but trying to operate on no larger than like a 6 to 7 foot gap in between something like this that's really solid and really heavy. Right now, we're really operating under the premise of, say, 4 areas, and each area would receive 4 of these, with the exception of the metal ones would end up getting an extra one, just because as of right now they're smaller. And that really gets you to about a 30-foot wide area. That's kind of the premise we've been operating on, the assumptions, I should say.
So you're gonna need about maybe around 20 ore cars. I wonder if we could round those up around the county between the.
Bob Boland had found a manufacturer that makes newer ore carts too. And the problem is just the cost associated, like, to determine if we can do it. If we could get old ore carts, I know there's a guy up in Gilpin that's got a bunch of them right now too. And I've been trying to get a price on them and how many we might be able to get. But they have been a little bit tricky to come by. So we had found this new guy, or the new production facility. Jared, I know he had told, I'm not sure where it is, but they basically make brand new ones. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're happy to keep that mining aesthetic, no doubt.
Huster, they have anything over at the Argo?
It's a good question. We can ask. I don't know.
Huster's on the call.
Oh,
Not that she would necessarily know, but she may.
I don't think she's here right now. She might have dropped off.
All right, I thought I saw her on there earlier.
Are you done, Jared?
yeah. So basically what we're looking for is a preferred alternative of which one of the 4 options, but then also we did want to see what people's thoughts were in regards to if we did acquire an external funding source, which, as John mentioned, we're researching. We don't have an answer for yet, but we're researching. If there was a secondary solution, such as the metal fencing or something else that we talked about previously. So that's really what we're asking the group to give us input on.
Okay, any questions for Jared or comments for the group?
Stephanie, did you have a question?
Okay.
Well, let's start with the premise. Is it still the desire to open up Minor Street one way going eastbound?
This is Lindsay. I'll wear my Two Brothers Deli hat today. So I'm here with a plea to this group. I am begging if we could please get that street open. And one way, 2 way, I don't care, as long as vehicles can travel down the street. I am desperate. I did talk to Tommy Knockers. I know they're not on the call today, and they voiced that they were fine with the street getting open. I would absolutely hate to wait till the end of November to do it. I don't see people sitting outside anymore. I see outdoor tables that are half put together with the awnings or the covers missing. I mean, why not just get it out of there and let's get the street open? I can say from the delis, our sales are, we are really hurting from the street being closed. And I just feel like it's cold enough outside. And so I wanted to get Chip's and Stephanie's thoughts. I wish there were more business owners on today, because I wanted to get everyone's thoughts. I mean, I think we're crazy to keep it closed until the end of November. I would open it up by tomorrow if we could. And I am getting comments from customers that said, oh, we thought you were closed because the street's closed and it's just, there's no one down there. And so, you know, if we're not going to have people doing things outside, then let's at least have cars driving down there.
Can I jump in here? And this is, obviously, I'm not a business owner on Minor Street, but I am a property owner. And I did run a business on Minor Street, one for 20 years and another one for 25 years. You know, the deli specifically at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning would have 10 cars parking in it, waiting for the doors to get unlocked. Now they don't. It's the type of place, and there are other businesses on Minor Street that have the same, that people park, run in, grab their food, run out, and go on their way. Westbound has that now with their new coffee shop that they've done. And I'm assuming that they're having an impact from this. They'll be amazed to see what happens once the street gets back open. The coffee shop is the same thing, Frothy Cup. And I'm not sure if anyone saw, but when Lindsay was advocating getting the streets open sooner than later, Chip had his thumb up. So, you know, I think of the 1400 block. You've got one business that may take advantage of outside seating, one of 11, but you keep it closed one way, potentially two ways. Doesn't make sense. One of 11. So something is done to benefit one business and it negates the thoughts potentially of the other 10 businesses. I was also on this call last week, and you know, the Idaho Springs Marketing Alliance, I really appreciate what they're doing. I'm not sure if their voice, though, is collective of all the voices of the business owners on Minor Street. And as these decisions are made, it shouldn't be from the vocal few. It needs to be made by what the majority has to say. And it's kind of funny, the start of this meeting today, it seemed to be a predetermined conclusion that the street was only going to be open one way, or maybe not at all. I still think the discussion needs to be there. Should it be open both ways? How soon should it be open?
We have been having that conversation now for several weeks. So that isn't
Perfect.
totally true that we just discussed it today.
I didn't say that, you just discussed it today, but
Yeah.
that seemed to be the pre-concluded.
We're trying to get a direction on if that's the appropriate action.
Yep, but I still think you need to consider opening it in both ways, whether it's all 3 blocks or potentially the 1400 block. If there's a consensus on the 1500 block that people are going to take advantage of sitting outside, potentially close it one way. But if they're all in agreement, no one's going to be using outside, open it up. Thank you.
And I'll just say one last thing. Sorry, guys. But I guess my thought is, you know, the business owners did an amazing job coming together with the city during COVID and when we were in a major emergency with the shutdowns and only having 50% capacity, 25% capacity. I mean, that was rough on everybody. And so the outdoor seating made a lot of sense. I guess the question I would pose right now is, does the outdoor seating make sense? I know that pretty much every storefront on Minor Street has a help wanted sign up. Can you even utilize outdoor seating if you do have it with the limited staffing that everybody has? So do we even do it, or do we just open the street up both ways? And I still advocate for purchasing the barriers, because I think it's a great thing to have in the summer. And I think it's a great thing to have in the case of an emergency. But given that we don't have any mandates currently, you know, we're all at 100% capacity and struggling with staffing. Do we need to go through all this work on the street, or do we just function at 100% capacity and not mess with outside and have the two-way street and get our businesses back up and running? But being that much more prepared if we do need to throw up barriers and get outdoor seating put up.
Well, I need to keep bringing this group, pulling them back to what our direction has been all along from way back this fall, was that the street would be entirely open the week after Thanksgiving weekend. So we'd go through Thanksgiving weekend the way we are now, and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday after Thanksgiving weekend, or Monday and Tuesday would be the breakdown, clean up, get everything, you know, all the signs, you know, aligned, and then be back open completely on that Wednesday. And of course, in the meantime, over the last couple of months, there's been a very healthy discussion, which is good, about is this definitely the way we want to go? Do we want to go back to what we did last year, which was one-way eastbound, have dining on the north side, have protective barriers. And of course, the huge challenge right now is that we as a city are not prepared to safely protect dining areas on the north side. And the quickest delivery that we might get, I believe, is the water barriers, John, and that may be towards the end of the year. Does that sound right? Or
The water barriers, if I may, the water barriers were potentially a 2-week deliverable.
2 week? Okay,
They were not something that was preferred by the majority of
understood.
previous. Yeah. So I think, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've had this direction regarding time frame of opening for quite some time.
We have. Yep. Yeah, I just want to keep bringing us back to that because that's where we've been headed. We certainly are open to doing things differently, but I'll be frank, I am not. We are not, as a staff, and I think we're not coming up with any consensus on this. We really aren't. We tried over the last few weeks going to various businesses to see what they'd like to do, and my understanding is it was pretty ambivalent, whether we opened it or we kept it closed part way. So unless there's, in my opinion, unless there's a real strong push to do the one way, to get the barriers, understanding that's going to mean likely the street will have to be closed for quite a few more weeks. Even with the water barriers, it's going to be a little bit of time. And that's not what everybody seemed to want. It's just going to take some time. So,
Andy?
go ahead. Chip, we haven't heard from you. Go ahead.
I got a couple of things. Again, you said you haven't been able to get any consensus. That's obvious. And I asked the question a little while ago, how many barriers you're going to need. You couldn't give that answer because nobody's gotten back to you. The time has passed. I think wanted to, and they haven't been able to do that. At this point in time, I don't think the city has a whole lot of choice but to go ahead, open up the streets at both ways. Again, listening to Lindsay, and she made a whole lot of really good points. I know my staff, talking to them before I left, they were indicating they would just as soon see it all opened up. Again, I don't want to say too much. One of the bigger people on the block, and I don't like to say a whole lot, but I think it's past time at this point. You can't get the Jersey barriers in time to make it happen. They haven't gotten, nobody's made any decisions, or there hasn't been a consensus. I think that lack of consensus has made the decision for you.
I think Dr. Boland had her hand up as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I have no skin in the game either way. I want all of the businesses to succeed, but as a business owner who's off of the main street, I can tell you this discussion has gone around, ad nauseum, and this is very tedious, and this is not a good use of anyone's time anymore. Let's table this discussion and move on. I think that, there's positions on each side. I think everyone has valid points, but I remember Andy trying to encourage decision-making weeks and weeks ago. And, let's not do this anymore. Can we make a decision to just, I don't know, something, but this is not a good use of anyone else's time at this point. And I mean, I don't have any skin in the game. I don't have a preference one way or the other. I want everyone to succeed. I want everyone to be heard. I want it to be fair and equitable, but good God, this is not the way we want to go anymore. I can't take anymore.
It's time to say goodbye to this issue and start planning for next spring and next summer and what it looks like going forward. I think we've passed our window for dealing with the winter.
All right. Any other thoughts? Stephanie, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. It was under my understanding from the last special meeting on Monday was that we had decided that we would close the street going the one way, closing it on the north side, allowing the one way. And that the only thing that I thought that we were deciding upon today was which of the flower pots, because that was also decided, I thought, last week that we were going to move with these barriers. So today was only which barriers were we going to choose. And correct me if I'm wrong. That was my whole thought process for this meeting.
I feel that that was staff's direction. That's how we had followed up.
Sorry, I threw it for the loop, but I guess I just think it's important that, you know, we just really think this through. Just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's dead out there. The street is dead. And I'm seeing a setup or a lot of these outdoor setups that are half put together at this point. And that's not helping anything either. So I guess I just think, you know, we need to, plans can change. I mean, I was told that the street was going to stay closed until end of November. All I'm saying as a business owner, I think that's too late. I think we should open it today. And I've talked with a couple other businesses just on my block and the same thing of it's so dead.
I think they were waiting for Mountain Prime to come in with their decision, and they were ambivalent for quite a while. But if we don't have all of the decision makers together at the table at one time, we get nowhere, and the rest of us are bystanders. And it's, you know, how much time have we spent on this one issue? And I understand there's changing variables, and, you know, but maybe bring those people together, because if those are the people that, you know, need to be heard for this particular discussion, all of them have to show up at the same time. Or, I mean, I don't know how we're going to get through anything else. Really, honestly, people. I mean, where's Mountain Prime today? Anybody know?
Do we have, I apologize, I forget, do we have programming that was set for that last weekend in November? I think that was one of the reasons why we had focused on keeping it closed until that weekend, because there was programming on that week. Now it could be an error, so if anybody knows more than me, please chime in.
Jared, I don't think so. I think it was just early on in the fall or late summer, whenever we this plan, we came up with this plan, and, you know, we talked with the group about this plan several times a few months ago. And obviously they need, you know, businesses need time to get their items removed from the street. The city needs time to make sure the street's safe and the signage is correct. So to answer your question, Jared, I don't think it was a particular need to keep the street closed through Thanksgiving. It just seemed to make sense at the time, because our falls are often pretty nice. The downtown marketplace was pretty vibrant earlier this fall. And we do have the tree lighting and the caroling. It's Small Business Saturday. So it just seemed like a natural to just have it go through that weekend. So I guess if we're thinking we want to end it sooner, I think that's possible. We'd have to make sure the word gets out. I'd want to make sure Public Works is good with a stepped up time frame. Obviously, we'd have to make sure council approves of that plan. But I think it's possible that we could move it up, open it up by a couple weeks if that was the direction today. But yes, the special meeting last week, it seemed to be the desire to get the street open and get it one way. And the question was on the barriers. And that's why staff came back with some options. The big sticking point is delivery times. And the plastic water-filled barriers, we might be able to get those in a few weeks, it sounds like. But definitely the group wasn't real excited about those because of the appearance. The advantage is if we really wanted to do the one-way eastbound, get it open in a couple of weeks, put those water barriers, we could just use those this year. And Public Works certainly could use those for other purposes to some extent. So they wouldn't be wasted if we decided to go with, decorative flower pots the following year, or planters the following year. And also it's understood, there are some different folks on this call than there were last week at the special meeting. So that makes it a little more complicated. Not everybody who was on last week's call is on this week's call. So
is it possible to maybe send out a group email to everybody and just say, look, based on the weather and the lack of traffic that we've seen, foot traffic, we are looking at, opening the street up, say, in a week. I mean, we pulled our stuff off in a day, but I realized that ours was a lot less. We just had kegs holding our plastic fencing down, and just see what responses you get. Or, I mean, does council have to approve opening the street, or can it just be a decision where you just open it? And
it is on the work session agenda for tonight for City Council. And yes, we've always gone with City Council's direction on something like this. They were the ones that made the decision to close the street early on based upon input from this group early on. So I think they value that and would want to make sure that they're meeting the needs of as many people as possible, and knowing that not everybody's going to be happy about it. So yes, Chip.
It seems like, I wasn't on the meeting last week and I did hear about it. And again, I can flow with whatever way, but I think Lindsay brings up a lot of good points. Again, some of the problems is you don't have, is there anybody that y'all know of that really wants to keep the outside dining open? Is there anybody that's really pushing for that? Because I'm not sure that I know of anybody that is. I know that I've talked with Steve over at Tommy Knockers. I'm sorry?
I think you're just getting some feedback, Chip, but go ahead.
Okay, but so I'm wondering if there's anybody that really is pushing for this. And if not, again, we've been going around like Lindsay says, and Dr. Bowen says, we've been going around this for months now. I think we should be personally focusing towards next spring, and if there's a couple of businesses that want to keep some dining out on the north side of the street, let them put some barriers up and open up the rest of it. Maybe doesn't sound like there's anybody really pushing that hard for it, but I don't know. But I'm with Lindsay. I think we need to make it move. Last weekend when I was there, it was really nice out. There was somebody humming and strumming down in the 1600 block, and I didn't see, except for maybe 2 or 3 people sitting out there listening. So again, doesn't seem to me like, I know I wouldn't sit out there.
What about Sadie or westbound and down? I don't know. I don't even remember who's on which side, but I think they had some interests on this topic.
There is people who are interested. I think that there's people on both sides of this issue, and I think it would need to be, we have really made a point to have this task force make these decisions, and I know we have had some problem getting consensus here, but I do think there are voices in this conversation that should be heard.
I agree, but I think there should be a timeline and wrap it up, because the rest of us are losing interest. We want to discuss other things, and I want to participate in a more active way than listening to this discussion that does not pertain to me in any shape or form.
I think that though it does pertain to a lot of people, and we do need to come up with a solution that works for everyone because of that. And I agree with you on the time, but it needs to be we need to make sure that the process works too.
I think we want the process to work, absolutely. However, my thinking is that, was there a deadline that was put in place? Because if there was, and then it wasn't respected, then where are we now? I'm frustrated.
Well, at the very least, we need to make a decision about whether we're going to continue with the plan to open up minor completely after Thanksgiving weekend. Because again, that is what Public Works is planning on, staff is planning on. But again, over the last couple of months, we've been open to different ideas, maybe doing the one way, trying to figure out the barriers. So, well, this is a tough one.
It is tough, and you guys are in a really hard position here. How would there be a possibility of polling the individuals that that should be involved in this decision? And I mean, we got to come to a conclusion that needs to be done quickly. Maybe you could do a poll. Talk with Sadie and Westbound and Down. I'm not sure, again, that's why I was asking the question, like, who really wants to make that make it happen? And we got to get everybody on this, together and there's got to be a decision made, because it's too late to order the stuff anyhow. So you really need to have a decision made, before the end of this week.
Well, I don't think Westbound and Down has, I mean, again, the concept that was floated last week was one-way eastbound with activated areas only on the north side. Parking would be on the south side. So Westbound and Down under that scenario would not, I'm not saying they wouldn't have a say, but they wouldn't be activating the space in front of their business, just like Bojo's wouldn't, just like Tommyknockers wouldn't. Tommyknockers is unique because they don't have the mall behind them, but they do have some space on the west side that they can use. But again, Steve's not here, but I heard him say in this meeting that that he's not decided whether they would use any of that outdoor space on the west side. Again, haven't made a decision on that. It's hard, it's same things we've heard. It's hard to serve, limited staff. Heating is costly, wind damage, snow damage. So
maybe could staff go to the people, because it's basically those that are on the north side of the street that are going to be impacted on this. Get a definitive, yes, they want to have it, no, they don't want to have it.
Chip, again, I'm going to be very frank, but I don't think we're going to get that. Staff did do that, both Jared and Jonathan. Maybe Jared or Jonathan, maybe you could just give a little summary of that, what you were hearing. And
yeah, so I completely understand, Chip. I think that's a great idea, and we did go out and I personally canvassed almost all the restaurants, and the ones I didn't get, John, I was able to touch base with. So the main issue is, it seems like for most of those businesses are that they're interested if there's any restrictions, and they don't want for us to be caught flat-footed if for some reason there end up being restrictions. That's why sometimes it seems like the lead time for purchasing things may be a little less critical, because it still is in preparation and in case of something that may or may not happen. So you're right, it's really tough to get a definitive answer, and frankly we haven't, because it does depend for a lot of those businesses as to what occurs in the future. It doesn't sound like we'll probably have many restrictions, if any. We just don't know, and so it's preparing for those items. That's what we've been kind of tasked with for the businesses on the north. The other part of it is we've been trying to work on this in an equitable manner. The businesses on the south do have the ability to have spaces outside much easier than the businesses on the north side of the street. So that's really one of the main reasons why we looked at it this way. Now, if we are able to get, solid enough planters, we could try to pull back those planters and make a narrower band where the parking is, and maybe look at two-way traffic. I'm not sure that we love that idea, just because it does create potentially more conflicts, but something we could potentially look into. But I think regardless, prior direction anyway, was that we needed some form of protection, some form of barrier in the event that something does occur and the people on the north side do want outdoor dining.
So basically, it's an emergency situation that if we get restricted, and I know talking with Steve over at Tommy Knockers, that was kind of his concerns. As long as we've got full dining, he really, he didn't want to serve outside. It's really hard to do that. It's really tough. It's expensive. It takes a lot of extra staff that none of us have. And I can see that. So maybe what it is that we're trying to do here is come up with an emergency situation that if we do get to a point where we are restricted in shooting, that we can put that in place, but not necessarily do it prior to that.
That's what we're trying to do. That's what this whole thing is about. And we're trying to spend the money responsibly. We have opportunity to get grant funding for this, which would potentially give us equipment that could be used if public health orders change in the future. The intention here was to create a plan. Last year, we got lucky that we had those barricades from CDOT. We're not going to have that this year. And so we're going to, if there is a change, we just need to be able to pivot is what we were looking into.
So I guess that to me, that kind of clarifies where we're going at this point in time that I didn't have before. So in that scenario, I would say close down the streets now because nobody's using it. Get yourself your water barriers that are cheap and they're removable, and you can put them in place quickly.
I'm not muted.
Yeah, I see a couple of hands up.
Stephanie, go ahead.
I just make a motion to, can we move forward with the metal flower barriers? Because we can use it in the summertime, which is one of the reasons that we kind of were going to move forward with the flower barriers, was that we can actually decorate them in the winter. We can make it beautiful on Main Street during the summer months, and that they have multi-purpose.
One option would be you could recommend that we do that if we get the grant too, and the water barriers if we don't.
Well, I'm almost hearing, John, that maybe we might be headed towards a hybrid. I'm almost hearing that we probably should order some water barriers if we had to act quickly, because those we could get in several weeks. The metal flower planters or the concrete flower planters are going to take at least till the end of the year, maybe longer, is what I'm hearing. Is that fair to say? Okay.
Yeah, and I guess just to kind of wrap things up, I'm hearing kind of two separate things. So it sounds like the consensus from staff going and talking to business owners is we just want to be prepared in an emergency. Like Chip said, like, let's just make sure we're prepared. And so it sounds like the one issue of let's get the street open, I feel like we could put that out there in an email and just say, we're talking about opening the street up by the end of the week due to A, B, and C, the lack of street traffic, the cold weather, and just try to get the street open, but still continue the work on ordering the barriers and being prepared if in fact something were to happen, and put that in the email as well. Say, look, we're trying to get grant funding. We want to order these barriers. They can be used in the summer. They can be used in an emergency. And so we can act quickly when we need to. But for now, since there's no real activation down on the street, like the Gleis rink isn't down there, there's not fire pits everywhere. I would advocate for the two separate issues. Like, let's try to maybe, if it would be possible, and I'm happy to speak at the work session, advocating for this, try to get the streets open as quickly as possible, and then continue the work towards getting those barriers in the case of an emergency. Because it sounds like that was kind of the feedback that was received from the businesses. And if it's necessary to have something that's more definitive, maybe put out a quick survey, just yes or no, open the streets up now or not. And then you have it on file, let just people vote on it, I guess. But I'm hearing two separate things. And one is let's try to act to get the street open and activated again with traffic and parking. And then two, let's try to be prepared in the case of an emergency.
Terry, Dr. Rowland?
I think that sounds very reasonable. And, if you can put a survey out and the people who don't respond within, a reasonable amount of time and state in that, email how long they have to respond, not, they can't let it go 4 weeks down the line and then, make their opinion known. So I think it's very reasonable what Lindsay is saying here. And with the barriers, I think if you can come up with a range, at least, we don't know the exact count, but if you can say, 10 to 15 or 15 to 20, I have no idea. I'm totally making those numbers up, but just come up with an idea as to what the range is that we're looking at. And also what, if you're applying for grant money, is that, if it's for the barriers specifically, or is that, what are the requirements for the grant money, and what's the likelihood of getting that money?
The likelihood is good. The barriers must be used this season to get the grant. If we do not use them this winter, we will not get the grant.
But we could still use them after January. So
not with the grant.
Late,
they have to be used this winter, only this winter for the grant to work. But
okay,
that doesn't mean that that's the only option.
Okay, but winter goes into February, right?
They would have to be used in the winter season. So I think we probably have some flexibility, but let me finish what I'm saying, please. What I've said is that they need to be used during the winter season. If it's too short of a period in the winter season, we may not get the grant, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we couldn't do something at that point and find another funding source.
So if we ordered the barriers, then when would we find out about the grant funding?
I think what John is saying, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think you're saying is it needs to be a COVID-related purpose, and that it would need to be used this winter. So if we ordered the barriers and never shut down the street, let's just say we reopen the street tomorrow, and we decide to keep it open all the way through the winter, it wouldn't be eligible. Am I stating that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we just have to be a little careful, I guess. If we end up not using whatever barriers or planters we acquire, if we don't use them this winter to block off areas for outdoor dining, we may not be eligible for that money. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So I think, to clarify all of that in the email, and I know that kind of, brings it full circle, but just to remind those parties that will be receiving the survey via email, if that's what you decide to do, that grant funding is dependent on this criteria, and that, I don't know if it's spending the money or actually utilizing the barriers, but I imagine it would be utilizing the barriers is what would be the intent behind the grant funding. Just to remind people of that. And I don't know, I know that there's many sides to the issue, but it sounds like we want to try to move forward on this and, maybe present that at City Council tonight if that's an emergency decision that needs to be made.
Jared?
I guess I'm happy to work on a survey or something of that nature, but I do think that this is going to be challenging when we've been talking for the last couple of months about going through Small Business Saturday. As I just think that's going to be tough to do. So, like I said, I can come up with a survey. I could probably do a doodle poll or something like that, but just, we we unfortunately, it seems like our group today is a little different than it has been in the past, and we've had a lot of direction about Small Business Saturday. So, but we can look into it.
When is Small Business Saturday?
It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So normally you have Black Friday and then Small Business Saturday. And then, you know, if you're really into the holidays, the Cyber Mondays, Monday. So
Hey, John Kane, would you want to just give a little more information on Small Business Saturday? I know that's a chamber sponsored event.
Partially, ISMA has a piece as well.
I don't know where that feedback's coming from.
The plan was to have a market. I think we're all. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Steve,
The plan was to have a.
You came in a nick of time, buddy. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, I had it in my mind it was every other week, and we did it last week.
John Kane, go ahead. I know you're telling
Okay.
us about Small Business Saturday. Good.
The general plan was to have, we always have an event at Citizens Park with Santa and the mayor reads the night before Christmas, and the Christmas tree is lit. We are planning on doing that this year. The other things we had been talking about is potentially having some market space places available on Minor Street for Idaho Springs businesses, utilizing the street that would be closed. I don't know how far along the ISMA is in that work. I don't know if Steve might know potentially. But that was kind of the general plan that we had been thinking about for that weekend. And then carolers and all that kind of thing. We'd have the madrigals from the high school and Santa and potentially reindeer.
So, Steve, just to get you up to speed, we have been at this over an hour, so I do think we need to try to wind this down. But Steve, basically the discussion today has been a little bit different than last week, and that is maybe the best decision is just to not only to open the street completely the weekend after the week after Thanksgiving, but maybe even open it up sooner than that. And so we're kind of, we have lots of different thoughts being expressed, which are all valid, and we're just trying to find a path forward. This is on the agenda for City Council tonight at work session, and we really do need to get some direction from council on what they want to do with the winter marketplace.
Is one-way traffic, parking on both sides, still an option?
I think that's a possibility. In other words, what you're saying, Steve, is have it one way eastbound with parking on both sides, and we don't activate any spaces till we have the proper barriers. I guess that is an option as well. Again, yes, I would say that's an option.
That's my preferred vote there, as far as we talked about it many times, but that's my vote.
And Steve, Lindsay would really like to see the street opened up yesterday.
That's fine with me also.
Steve, I think you have some of the most elaborate setup out there. How long reasonably do you need to take down what you have out there? It looks very nice, by the way, but how long do you need?
Well, if you guys all come over and help,
I'll help you guys.
Are there beers
No,
for that?
Yeah, we have been talking about it. I think it would just take a couple of days notice of when you want it to open, and we can make it happen. It's not that big a deal.
But you'd
We
like
can do it in 4 hours.
Okay, but you'd like, I'm gathering you'd like to have at least a few days notice for staffing.
Yeah, a couple of days notice, and we can do it in 4 hours.
Okay.
This weekend was really nice out. I know it was like 75 in Denver. How busy was the Minor Street Market over this weekend?
I was here yesterday walking the street, and there was a pretty good vibe on Main Street. Nobody was sitting in the shade, but it was still a good vibe. There's people walking around and playing cornhole and stuff.
So I had to drop off for a few minutes. Can I get a recap of where everybody and what we should be presenting to council tonight, or do we not to get to that consensus? Or are we still up in the air?
Go ahead,
Jared?
Jared. You gonna take a stab at it? You're a brave man.
Yes, I will take a stab at it. Please inform me if you think I summarized this incorrectly or falsely. First of all, I think we've got direction that we can pursue purchase of barricades in general, whether that be a combination of things that we can get earlier and things that we can get later on for the purpose of either A, somebody does decide that they would like them over the winter, B, if the health situation changes. So then on a other end, so that's one item. Second item, still interested in either one-way open or two-way, but with still the possibility of potentially activating some spaces if need be or if wanted. And lastly, there's interest in opening the marketplace earlier than Small Business Saturday. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if I've missummarized that. I've got one
pretty good
thumbs
job
up.
there,
Yep.
Jared. Hey, John Bordoni, am I correct that most of the signs are still oriented for one-way traffic eastbound as a carryover from last year? Is that a fair statement? Or I know they need to be checked, but is that probably the case?
We do have a few.
Okay.
My preference is if we're going to open the street, we just open it two directions instead of trying to control it one direction eastbound. Just open it both directions, which helps traffic flow all over town. And I need more than just a couple of days to get all of those picnic tables off of the streets and the signs corrected. But that's my preference. If you're going to open it two-way traffic to normal traffic flow.
And I do think that there might be a chance of narrowing those spaces to try to fit them within the parking stall depth. I know that adds a little bit more complexity with the potential for traffic, passing one another. But, if someone does come to us and say, hey, I'd like to do this on the north side, we could look into narrowing those spaces, maybe go longer and skinnier or something of that nature. There's probably going to be less tables in general at one of those spaces. So I think that's something that we could probably work on as well.
I think if you do that, depending on what type of barrier you get, those parking stalls are about 8 foot wide. If you have something that's 2 foot at the bottom, then you're down to 6 foot. The picnic tables, if you use those, are about 5 foot wide. So, I mean, that's not going to give you much room to operate around there.
Yeah, agreed. They might have to go long, ways instead of perpendicular.
Yeah, they would have to go a long way. I just would like somebody to make a decision on what it is that we are going to do. Either open it or make it one way so we know what to expect. And I will reiterate, it's probably been me all along. We need something absolutely to protect citizens that are out there eating, whether it's planters or barriers. The plastic barriers, yes, they don't look the greatest. We can put them in the back of a pickup and put them out there and fill them with water and you're done. The planters, we're gonna have to get filled with dirt and move those around and put them in places. So one way or the other, I think a decision just needs to be done as to what we're going to do and when.
Steve, I'm wondering, I know you had mentioned the doing one way, but it sounds like, if we're not going to do the outdoor seating, and it sounds like it'd be easier for the city just as far as signage and whatnot, just to have it be two-way, but be prepared, like if there's any concerns or mandates that come forward, we're prepared to immediately change that to where it's one way with the barriers, whether it's those water barriers or something else. Obviously, I think everyone agrees that those planters are really great looking, but if it's something on the fly that we need to do, but just for the purpose of getting everything open, is the easiest thing to just do it two-way for now, and then we can always change that if we need to bring those barriers in.
Yeah, whatever works, but I still prefer the one way just because it felt like it was safer for people in town walking around. It wasn't so tight and it seemed like people drove slower. And it did offer some better than it is now, of course, for getting around town, but two-way is a little better for that. But I just felt like it's so tight with two-way traffic. But whatever works and to move the thing forward, because I think we all agree that the street needs to be open in some form or fashion. So let's make a decision and make that happen.
Steve, your concern with the two-way traffic is if there's still dining out on the street?
No,
No, just on a general basis?
general basis, yeah, it's like when there's two-way traffic, you know, I'm speaking from experience, when you're driving, you're just staring straight ahead and trying to get through without hitting mirrors or hoping someone doesn't come up between parked cars with. I noticed when we did one-way traffic, people actually slowed down, drove down the middle of the street and looked around, and there's space in between the cars driving and the cars parking. It just was a better feel, you know, for Minor Street, but again, it's just that could be worked into if it's, the main thing is to get the street back open.
Yeah, I'm fine with either way as long as we can get the street open as well.
All right. Well, anything else? Any final thoughts? Mayor, does that, have you heard enough for tonight?
Hey, I'm a lame duck, man. I'm a lame duck now.
Woo, I think that just got passed.
Doc, what do you think about all this?
Our mayor-elect, Chuck Arman.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the street open. You know, whatever's best for the businesses is best for the city and the citizens.
I think we could make it a little bit more complicated. Why don't we make it westbound until noon and then switch it around to eastbound afternoon?
Would you go?
It must be happy hour. It must be happy hour in Hawaii.
It's always happy hour in Hawaii.
It's always happy hour in Hawaii. Are you kidding?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, well, we'll bring this to council tonight, and we should know by the end of the evening the direction we're having. So if we decide to open it up two ways, are we going to allow the businesses on the south side to activate the mall again? And are we risking that folks on the north side that want to activate on Minor Street, if we take that away from them, and this isn't fair?
Mayor, I don't know if you heard some of the discussion earlier, but we really haven't heard much definitive desire one way or the other from most of the businesses on the north side about the desire to activate the outdoor space.
Okay. Because really, well, Chip already has an encroachment agreement on the back. So if he wanted to use that, the only one that really, what we have westbound and down was the only other one that activated the backside, wasn't it?
And then we've got the Vintage Moose.
Okay, yeah, the Vintage Moose. And then what I've heard before is Steve's not planning on putting tents and stuff on the west end of the building this year. Is that correct, Steve?
That's correct, unless something changes with COVID.
And I'll say my word, adaptive management. I'm good with doing something and working it and being prepared if we take the worst case scenario and take a dive the other way, that we can very quickly put things together and activate the street again for those people on the north side.
It's kind of what we're talking.
And just one last thought to John's point about needing to have those barriers used this season. I know there's been a lot of talk about closing off 16th Street and having that be permanently closed. Maybe you throw the barriers up there to block that off. And I don't know where the conversation is with the Gleis rink, but if you're able to bring that Gleis rink down to 16th over there, so that way the barriers are getting used and you're not in that issue of having to, or not having the money or getting the COVID money, might be a solution to use the barriers and then use them to activate the street in the summertime.
Lindsay, I don't know if you've heard, but I believe that the Gleis rink will not be coming downtown. They've had some logistic issues and some health issues, and John Bordoni was real concerned of how they would tie into the curbs. So my last, and correct me if I'm wrong, John Kane, that they're not planning on bringing that downtown, right?
Not currently.
Okay.
Or even if you did like a mini marketplace, just to get the barriers out on the street, so that way it qualifies for the funding.
Just do a weekend party some weekend.
Says the guy in the sun in Maui in January.
So Mayor, we went right into this discussion. I know you had to drop off for just a little bit, but we went right into this discussion, and we're almost an hour and a half in here. So we didn't go around the room, but if that's something you want to do real quick, and then we can wrap up. I think we've got a good bit of information and some direction that we can take to council tonight.
Yeah, just real fast. If anybody has anything that they'd like to throw out or discuss real quick, we can do that. Of course, I can't see your hand, so Andy, if somebody raises their hand, let's just get them out front.
All righty. Any final thoughts before we close here? Thanks.
I'll just say,
Stephanie,
Andrew?
go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
That's all right, Andy. I'm just moving forward. Westbound then could still use the back area. Is that correct?
Well, the mayor just raised that point as a matter of equity, and that was one of the advantages of activating the north side through the winter, is that, you know, just about every business that would want to use outdoor space could use outdoor space. But I think the intention is to, just like with Bojo's, it's had encroachment agreement for a number of years. I know Westbound and Down and Vintage Moose as well. If you want to continue using it, I think that's the intent.
Okay. I just want to
I'm
clarify.
gathering, Stephanie, that's your desire, correct?
That is my desire. Yes.
Okay. We'll make sure council knows that.
Thank you.
Sure. All righty. Terry, I don't think has any. Just waving goodbye.
No, I just had a quick,
say.
I had something to say. Can you imagine? And completely separate issue, but there will be a new opportunity for primary care offered through my business for businesses. So you can get an employer-sponsored healthcare plan for primary care for your employees, which is becoming more important for a draw to retain staff, to market to getting staff, and also to retain those staff. So more to come. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, anything else? Or are we good to close?
Yep, I don't think I have anything else right now.
All right. Well, thank you all. Unless you hear otherwise, we'll meet in 2 weeks. We'll go back to our every other week schedule. So in 2 weeks. Thanks for hanging in there and for everybody's thoughts. Really appreciate it.
Sorry for opening
All
the
right.
can of worms, guys.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.